even locked or closed.
No problem. That's okay.
Yeah, you know what I'm getting at, right?
Yes, I do. I do. And, as I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about this, you were talking about how women and their cycles and the way we are as women mirrors itself within the earth. And I was thinking about the awareness that people have of the earth, the awareness that we do need to support it, the awareness that we need to care for it, that we need to receive from it, that we can glean a lot of precious things and healing from it. But I wonder, and maybe you can speak to this, that the view of women over the years and decades ago and all of that with patriarchy and the destroying of the woman's voice and all of this has caused this lack of awareness that we can see within our care and tender of the earth, that they both connect.
Absolutely, right. Let's go back to the witch burnings. The witch burnings where if a woman was a midwife and could relieve a woman's pain in childbirth, right? Natural healing.
Yes.
Natural wisdom, natural understanding of the process of birth. Hospital births, overused cesareans, women who want to home birth told that they're going to put their baby at risk of dying. Right? I remember my second birth that was a planned home birth, and my sister-in-law saying, "Oh, did you see that article the other day about a home birth that went wrong and the baby died or the mum died or something?" Right? This fear, absolute fear, because you know what? We feared getting burned back then too. So there is a fear for the natural processes. Witch burnings again, the herbalist, the woman who worked with plants to heal.
Yes.
Well, if she was effective at her work, that got in the way of the men emerging as doctors and healers. And what did they want to do? They wanted to use leeches and bloodlet.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to do a lot of things that were actually quite dangerous to the human condition, and lost a lot of patients. Right? Yes, we have some things that have come through and being modernized, and this is what's become modern medicine as well. But right now, we also see this disdain for alternative healing.
Yeah.
It is the original healing.
Yes.
It is not alternative healing. Modern medicine is alternative healing. It is the original medicine, right? And so women lost their connection to healing with plants, connecting to the earth. What we need grows around us, right? There is an abundance of plantain in my front lawn. Now we're in Australia, it's growing really abundantly right now in spring. And right now is when the mosquitoes are starting to come out. Right now is when the bees are starting to emerge. Plantain is amazing for stings and bites. On a spiritual level, you can use it in charms. There's helicopter in charms and things like that to protect you from bites and stings and getting them in the first place. But you can chew on a leaf to release its juices and use it as a poultice on a sting you just got while you were outside in nature, right? It provides what we need. We go to somewhere like Thailand, Indonesia. The first thing you do is you start eating the local fruits, because the local fruits and their seeds protects you from the parasites that are there in that country, right? Nature's medicine is supplied to us.
Yes.
Right. I'm just looking at my pomegranate tree that's starting to put out her flowers so that she'll be able to grow fruits. Those will be ripe in autumn when we need an abundance of vitamin C to prepare our immune system for winter.
Yep.
Nature doesn't make mistakes.
No.
But there is this disconnection, especially for women, to like being able to, I want to say the words plant whisper, connect to the spirit of plants and feel what it wants to offer you, right? To be able to hold the lavender and take a deep breath of its aroma and go, that made me feel really calm. Lavender is for calming. And to notice, like, the dandelions, they're not weeds in the earth. They're actually there to produce nutrition, and they are really mineral rich. And the reason they're mineral rich is they create these really long, deep tap roots that go down to the mineral rich layers of soil and can pull that up into their leaves.
Wow, yes.
So dandelion's really mineral rich, and at the time of year it comes out, you start eating some of that in your salads, and it's going to help fortify you and replenish what's been lost through the months where you haven't had as mineral rich food. Right? Less of those summer greens because it's being winter.
Yes.
And those tap roots that dig down, they are also helping to stop the soil to become compacted during winter from all the heavy rain.
Wow. Yes.
So we need to be careful we don't over harvest the roots, so that we can cut off the tops and let the root rot away or produce new plants, so that it helps to retain that aeration in the soil, so that the natural bacterial balance, the microbiome of the soil can be optimal, just like our guts need an optimal microbiome.
Yes. Yes.
Like, this is the wisdom of the earth. And when we start to see that from a place of devotion, right, I'm supporting the cultivation of this, that is where we develop the spiritual nature of this practice. It's not just gardening anymore. It's a craft, right? And what is wit? The word witch stems back to words that mean wise, right? Wise, wise woman, witchcraft, craft of the wise.
Yes.
It's not evil, it's not devil worship, it's the craft of the wise.
Yes.
So they persecuted the wise within us as women. They disconnected us from our chemical wisdom.
Yes. Wow. Wow.
And it was dangerous, so we ran away from it too. Some held on to it and hid it the best they could, right? And not all areas of the world, not every single part of the world went there, but we lost so many women over those hundreds of years. So of course we're disconnected right now.
Yeah.
We lost the great grandmothers that would have taught this to us. I'm very lucky to have had in my lineage, like my nana, who I've started sharing a lot of the stories about my nana, or connecting things that I know through my nana. And this here that I'm cultivating, the growing of my gardens, both the ornamental and the herbal and the food, it is in ode to her legacy, right? It is something I want to leave behind, is continuing this being passed along.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Because she always gardened. She always grew things. She always grew things both to enjoy them and to feed and to give to others. She always had chickens. It connected her into community as well, right? It connected her into her creativity. And so I'm really spending a lot of time, because it's a part of my remembrance of her, right? She lives on through everything I do here. And I said that in I could be at her, we did like a celebration of life. And so I wrote a piece for my mum to read. And I said that, and it was that she lives in us, and this was, a lot of us had this lineage of connecting to the earth cut off. And for her, part of it was survival, was she had to learn, right? Because they were very poor at that, and after the depression and things like that. And she was also solo mother a lot of the time too. So it was through survival, but it also brought her into a lot of joy. It really created a foundation that's moved through all our family. And I think that's important, that we bring that back for ourselves and also for our children, so that they don't get to that point where they feel like they're wandering lost and are trying to figure out how to return home. Yeah. Right? If we teach our children this way of life, they will always know themselves.
Yes. Yes.
And that's so valuable, so valuable. You know, the Dalai Lama said the Western woman will save the world, right? It's because we have the privilege of taking the time to cultivate this, to cultivate this deeper connection, and to cultivate not just with ourselves, but with the earth, and then to pass that along to our children, who will also have the privilege to give devotion to it.
Yes. So if I can ask you a question, with the children and the legacy and all of that, how do you feel that schools could implement more things around the earth? Because what I have seen, and I was a school teacher for years, there was a disconnection there. Even in science, everything was just heady and it was not a real experiential process. And you would learn about something over here, but you didn't get in it. You didn't immerse yourself in it. Your whole body wasn't there. You weren't touching it. It wasn't tangible. It wasn't real to you. It was almost kind of like, well, yeah, this is in my head. Okay, that's great. I know that does that. Wonderful. But then you go back to doing whatever it is you're doing. And I feel like schools right now are in a huge revolution in a lot of ways. And I feel that this is a piece that could really be implemented to children at the young age, just like your children are young. How would you give suggestions maybe to school systems and the educational system on how to bring back the cultivation of the earth to the next generation and beyond?
Yeah. What's really cool is that some of the schools here in the suburbs sort of nearby, most of them have a school garden, which is really cool.
Perfect.
However, I don't know how much the kids are responsible for tending that. I know there's some schools where it's like quite extensive, and there are programs where the kids are going in, learning about the garden, learning how to survive. I mean, they've even got chickens at one I know of, about 10 minutes away from here. And they take what they grow and they use that in like their food technology classes and their cooking classes and things like that. So there are some little connects starting to happen, and that's a beautiful place to be teaching children. But there needs to be more recognition of the seasonal nature of life.
Yes.
Right. And this is what like Steiner, is it Steiner? Education? Rudolph, yeah. They like all of their learning is in alignment with the seasons.
Yes. Yes. In fact, I just met someone. It's so funny you mentioned this, because when I first came to England, and not this year, but a while back, I had met someone who had done a Steiner school. That's what she was involved in. And she learned a lot of things that you're talking about right now as a little girl growing up in that whole understanding, that was a very awakened mindset and alignment back then that, is needed today. So continue, sorry. But
yeah, well, and I think that's something that the traditional school system, how traditional is it really when we think before this, the kids were learning, right? Farm kids were learning from their farm parents, right? How to tend the land, right? We were learning life in a more practical way before it became rote learning. But the traditional system needs to take a look at these systems that are teaching kids in a more holistic way, because school is not holistic right now. School is very compartmentalized portion of life, and it doesn't relate, right? And something I'm noticing is that like there's behavioral changes that are happening in our children as a result of the way they're living life that we didn't necessarily go through as kids when we were growing up, because there's so much pressure on them as well for all this rote learning and knowledge accumulation and giving it back in the right manner, right? Like my son's has gone through these emotional anxiety seasons where he's homeschooling at the moment, and it's really challenging because he doesn't really want to do anything. And it's like, go feed the chickens. tell me what I can't feed to the chickens, right? That's like trying to
Yes,
teach
yes.
it through life. And so this is like, my daughter, she's also my eldest stepping back into homeschooling. So she's helping me build the chicken enclosure, right? And so she was like, oh, here's some offcuts. Can I build something with them? And built herself a little shelf for her desk because she just had the opportunity to do that, right? That's math and measuring and,
Yes.
actually visualizing a concept and putting it into action, start to finish. These sorts of things need to be available to our young children. It's not until they get electives when they're in high school that they get to have a little bit of a choice around what it is they're starting to learn to support them in their pathway. Can we support them in what they're interested in when they're little? When they're actually young, right? Can we start cultivating creativity and an open explorational mind from young instead of worrying about perfect reading, writing, and spelling?
Yes. Yes.
Right? Kids will learn to read when they desire it, and it will naturally click and they'll just get it, right? I've witnessed that with 2 of my kids where I didn't do a lot to teach them how to read. But there came a time where they were like way behind and all of a sudden it clicked and they just excelled in reading. And now they are bookworms and cannot devour enough books.
Yes.
Right? But there's this pressure to get them caught up, to give them extra tutoring.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Just, for that one thing. How about we cultivate the desire to learn to read as a part of the things they're interested in, right? My son couldn't read the instructions on the PlayStation game he wanted to play. So, well, you have to learn to read then.
Yes. Yes.
Right? You want to read that story about the horse, you need to practice so that you can get there. And then you'll be able to pick up whichever book you want. And that was like exciting to them.
Yes.
Right? Not this, you need to know these words and how to spell these words and how to recognize these words, right? It's a totally different way of teaching. And like the earth, like if we're starting to, I think one of the things that we're seeing a lot of is kids confusing, as I mentioned, like this anxiety stuff with my son is like this connection from knowing yourself. And he's not the only one in his peer group that has these anxiety traits, right? A couple of his friends also have it in different ways. And it's impacting their desire to want to be around their peers even sometimes because it's so deep. But if we had our kids out in nature more instead of in classrooms, right? If we had them paying attention, like forest schools where kids are like, it's winter and you've got to just learn what to put on to go out still into the bush, right? Taking risks, right? Where's the real risk taking on a physical, mental, emotional level for them, right? Taking a risk in writing something is not a risk.
But there's such an edge to competition. See, with children and families, and as I was listening to your talk, I was remembering when I grew up, we would go to these little league baseball games, and everybody would be playing outside. And it felt like the parents, not my parents, but it felt like the parents were so competitive and were pushing their kids. And it was like this competition between families that was happening more than it was just children coming together and just, hitting a ball and playing and learning just how to cooperate together. Instead, it became this cutthroat thing between the parents, which then turned into this cutthroat thing with the children later on in life. And then they were all competing with each other and nobody was seeing themselves as connected, the interconnectedness that you're talking about, because now it's like, I've got to up my neighbor. I've got to do this X, Y, Z. Oh, you're into music. Well, that's frivolous. I'm into, something over here that's going to make lots of money. And we're going to do all these things. And the separation just keeps widening more and more and more. And as I'm listening to you talk, and that's a totally different topic, but it's the same type of principle of this need to understand that we really are connected. All of nature is connected. The trees communicate to each other. The fungi communicate. The plants communicate. Everything communicates, is seeping with communication, but it's becoming aware of the need and how much we really are in need of the reciprocal connection between both nature and us and nature, you and myself, our children and children, the communities at large. It's all about seeing that connectiveness. And what you're talking about is the disconnect. you're not putting the whole person in the classroom. You're catering to one side of the brain to talk to versus the entire person together as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, competition breeds that disconnection. And can we instead like look for the light that shines, the potential that shines in each child and go, that's your potential. Let's develop and grow that, right?
Yes.
Let's have you see what's brilliant about yourself and get you inspired to take charge of cultivating that, right? That's what I do. I coach soccer as well. I coach my son's team, and this year was a year where we really worked on, it doesn't matter, right? They're a very strong team. They won a lot of their games by high margins, but then there were a few games where they were a lot tougher. And I wanted them to always recognize that it doesn't matter at the end of the day what the score is. Yes, it's great when we win, but what I care about more is how you chose to play.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
How you chose to play as a team member, how you chose to play against an opposition player, how you chose to play for yourself, right? How you chose to try things out and take risks and put into practice the things that we've been working on, as opposed to going, oh, that kid's good at getting goals, let's just give the ball to him, or I only want to go in that position because it's the only one I want to play. No, you're going to learn to also play this place where you can learn to support someone to play that position, right? Like trees, we need trees in different layers, right? We need the canopies. We need the trees that are in the middle. We need the undergrowth. The undergrowth is protecting the soil. The canopies are protecting or filtering the light so that those that need less light down the bottom don't get fried by the sun. Or those up the top that can take it do, right? Like we need that in life as well, where we are all able to play our, I want to say the word role, not in the traditional sense of your role is this, but play our part in life, play our part in the ecosystem of community, right? Someone's a baker, someone's a fruit grower, someone's a candlestick maker, right? The baker, the butcher, the candlestick maker.
Absolutely.
Right? We are all claiming the part that we play. And then I've spoken about this in some of the lives that I've done recently around how we resource ourselves, right? And stepping out of everything having to be simply a monetary exchange. With like a big corporation store, right? And can I exchange money with someone who has something I need that they no longer need? Which is also then more sustainable for the earth. Or someone says, oh, I've got an abundance of this and I don't need it anymore. Who needs some, right? The number of times that I've gotten free compost or mulch in my garden,
yes,
that has supported me not have, like, I've not had the budget to get that amount of all those things I need, right? I mean, this garden could have cost me so much more than what it has to put together, but probably, gosh, I'm just kind of staring at it down there. I don't know, at least 50% of it is things that I've gotten gifted or at a very low cost from people who had it and no longer needed it.
Yes, yes. You know, when I lived in New Zealand, New Zealand was, I remember this specifically during, it would be the kiwi, like, you know, had the very big kiwis in New Zealand, and it would be the harvest time when kiwis were just ripe and they were coming off the trees. And I remember it was like almost every driveway, at the end of every driveway, there was these big containers, these big totes of all these kiwis. And it would be like, you know, $2, you know, 2 New Zealand dollars or nothing even for as much as you want. Take what you want. And I thought to myself, there it is. There it is. There's the abundance cycle. That abundance isn't just about feeding ourselves and, you know, blessing ourselves, but it's about helping and giving and offering, which we know as Mother Earth does unselfishly, is giving every day to us breath and life. And so I was so just astounded by that, because then it moved into the eggs, and then I was like, you know, I was starting
the tomatoes.
I was like living my meals on this one street because I was like collecting so much from people who were giving it away freely from their abundance. And they were not feeling like we were taking advantage of that. And, you know, how dare you take from our abundance? You owe us all this stuff to receive what we're giving, which we see a lot of it. It becomes an exchange, a transaction. And nature isn't about this transaction. It's not trying to like, I'm not going to give you breath today. I'm not going to give you oxygen today if you don't give me this in return. Now, it might function better if we take care of it and we, you know, we see ourselves connected to it. But it was that whole understanding of just selflessly giving. And I saw that in New Zealand. I saw that on the farms. I mean, it was absolutely incredible what I saw, what people were giving away, what people were, because everybody was seeing each other as part of each other. So there, I remember this one story where this man was like, I don't know how to repair my car, but I don't have the money for that. And the one guy said, well, I can repair your car. And then it came out a little bit later, he was looking for something that he wanted. And the guy said, well, I have that too. So they did this exchange. It was like a trade. I'll do your car if you know, and I'll give you this. And there was not this money as the end all, the meet all, the way to connect. It was such a, oh my goodness, what you're talking about is character and leadership for the future, and you know what it means to really bring light and love to the planet, where we are teaching as you know, from the young age, children how to not just win the game, which seems to be the focus, like you said, but how we play it, how we steward the earth, how we tender the earth, how we tender our own lives, how we steward our own lives, is what we're going to actually bring to the planet, whether positive or negative. And everything can't come down to money. It just can't. Everything can't be about that. So I love the fact that you're building your garden through, you know, trades and gives and, you know, less thans. And in that, I know that you will then give to other people in response.
Yeah, you know, and it's, you know, as I mentioned at the start, right, trying to live more naturally and sustainably is also a part of my values. And when my chicken pen is made up with 70% materials that I got to upcycle, that makes me feel really good that I've taken something that would have been discarded into landfill.
Yes.
And I have utilized it. Right? It's a win-win, right? I've maintained my financial resources to put them towards something else that matters, and I have saved an earth resource.
Yes.
At the same time, right? And, you know, over here, like one of the things I want to do is I want to grow an overabundance of tomatoes and peppers and things like that, because I want to create, and hopefully eggs, because I've done chicken math and now have more than 3 hens.
Right, that's what
they say. There's this thing called chicken math, and it's like you have a plan of how many you're gonna get, and then something happens, like we got 3. And see, I went to pick up this free mulch, and I've wanted chickens for years and years. I have desired to have my own chickens because I value the quality of the food that I eat, and I know that to get the best quality eggs, I raise the hens myself. And so I've wanted that for years, and I was starting to plan. I was joining the groups, but I wasn't quite there yet, and I was letting, you know, other little things get in the way of like being able to purchase the coop and all these sorts of things.
Right.
And I go to pick up this free mulch, and I've got my little 3-year-old with me who you saw earlier. And so the guy that I was getting it from, he's like, oh, I've got chickens, I'll show you my baby chicken. So he's showing the baby chicken to Silas, and then I'm like, oh, did you hatch them yourselves? Yeah. They're from your chickens. Yeah. Are you selling them? He goes, well, actually, yeah, I'd like to.
Oh.
And so I then go from seeing all these chicks and chickens on these groups that are going to cost me maybe $20, $30, $40 each, because he goes, well, how much do you want to pay? What do you think? Because I was like, well, how much are they? He's like, well, what are you thinking? I'm like, oh, about 15. What I was thinking? He goes, oh, good. That's what I was thinking.
Oh my God.
And so I get my 3 little first chickens for $45, and I get them home. And then after a little bit of learning on this group, I'm like, oh, people are confusing me now, and I think I might have some roosters.
No, right.
So I'm like, oh no. So I said to him, oh, do you have Do you mind if I come back and grab another one just in case? I think one of the ones that we've got might be a rooster, maybe two of them, and I just want to make sure I'm still got enough chickens. And so I go, and we get this one, we think it's the only hen left in the lot. We get it back the next day, it goes red and turns into shows its rooster colors, and I'm like, no.
Oh, no.
And now I'm like, okay, now I've got to go look for some more chickens.
Right, I'm with you.
And so I picked up 4 more girls last week. But when I was talking to the farmer, she's was describing what the traits that people had been saying means rooster. And she's like, and I'm like, oh, well, this is showing on this one here. And this is what my roosters are showing. And she goes, well, I'd say they're hens.
Oh, that's
like 6 hens, 1 rooster, and 1 maybe a rooster.
Maybe.
but like I went from 3. That's chicken math.
Yeah, right. You know, I spoke to someone in Florida last year who was learning how to, they got chickens as well, and they were talking about chicken math. I didn't even know it was a thing. I mean, like I had no idea until I was listening to them, and I was like, wow, there is a science behind all of this too, in the midst of everything. You know, it's like, oh my gosh.
It's not my fault. I ended up with 8 of them.
Oh God.
It just happened.
Yes.
It's so hilarious, and they're so amazing. I love them so much. I love coming out here, and that's a part of my day, right? Is one of our chores in the morning is someone needs to come out and let them out so they can feed and water. And one of the things, it's part of my chores is to come out and sit with them in the afternoons so that I can supervise them while they're free ranging. And like my 13-year-old's over there sitting with them at the moment, just watching them, right?
Yes.
Observing, right? Noticing their nature and cultivating a connection, a relationship with them, so they're going to be happy, healthy hens, right? Happy hens have better immune systems, less disease prone, right? Instead of I have to worm them with this chemical every 11 weeks and do this to them this often, right? Like there's so many, and it's the same with us as humans. Happier humans have better immune systems. They have stronger immune systems. And this is we need to be looking at this holistic nature of life.
Yes. And the cycles and seasons. I want to touch on that because I know I'm going to be ending here soon, but cycles and seasons is really, really important. It's important to me, like specifically within just our discussion, because I know that there are certain things in my life that I could have tried to force ahead with, but it would have been a disaster had I done that. The fast way of doing things would have been a very fragile sense at the end. And I love how nature is very methodical. It's very methodical, and when it blooms and when it, the seed goes into the ground and then it comes forth, there's a real understanding there of process of growth, process of transformation. And it feels like there's a lot of people who want the fast track today, okay, and like healing and the fast track to this and I'm not against that. There are times when you can have these amazing moments where things speed up and you like have this accelerated healing happen. And it's like, wow, but there's something to be said about the process. And if nature is a mirror to us, and nature is our guidance, and nature is what when we walk out of the door in the morning, we are immediately, there it is. Nature is in front of us, around us, within us. If nature is about process of transformation, then we as well can mirror that and know that process is okay. Process doesn't mean that everything's going to be delayed. Process doesn't mean that, you're going to be without. Process means it's a steady, methodical planting that is sustainable and can go for longevity. So can you talk just a little bit about the idea of process in our lives and how that correlates with nature? And then I'll end on a few questions too.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that's coming up is I literally was watching the other day a YouTube on how to support your hens to keep laying during winter, right? And there's things that you can do to support them to continue to lay their eggs. But a part of a hen's, and we want to do some of those things anyway because it keeps them nice and healthy. Winter for hens is actually about having a little bit of a rest from laying eggs so often so that they can actually have more of a longevity in their egg laying life cycle than forcing them to lay more eggs through the winter when they're needing to rest a little and replenish their bodies. right? So we could actually cut down their lifespan by forcing them to lay, or trying to force them to lay more through winter, especially if we're giving them more light than is natural in winter. Because some people will put lights up to give them more light during winter, because they need a certain amount of light to lay eggs. But like with trees, like you're talking about, like wanting to get things instantly, right? Sometimes we go and we pick this tree, blueberry bush, let's say, from the nursery, and we want to put it in the ground and we want all of those blueberries to ripen. Well, we're not necessarily going to get very good root stock in our blueberry if it's putting all its energy into growing the blueberries that are there. And so actually giving it a prune back and forcing it to focus on its roots instead of its fruit will make it stronger in the long run. And this is all about foundations. Nature builds foundations before it gives fruits.
Yes.
Right? Your fruit harvest will depend on the stability of the foundations. Stronger foundations, more fruits. Bigger root systems, more fruits. That's why fruit trees improve as each year goes on, because in the autumn, everything is shedding, unless it's an autumn producing fruit, right? But let's just use the seasons as if we're getting summer producing fruits. Autumn, everything is like we're getting the final, like the completion of the harvest, and then we're also getting the dying down at the same time, right? We're actually seeing the completion of the harvest because all the leaves are dying away and saying, here's what's left. We take and we pick what's left. And then if it's a perennial, it goes dormant on the surface so that all of its energy is beneath the surface during the winter, focusing on root growth. And we have to learn how to let go of what is above the surface, so that we could say what is external to us, what we're producing, right? In order to ensure that we have steady, stable foundations beneath the surface, right? If we're only focusing on what Bob and Joe down the road see of us, then we're not actually focusing on our self-acceptance. We're not focusing on like our internal compass and what we desire. We're not focusing on the things that keep us healthy in mind and spirit and our emotions and our bodies, right? Because we're worried about the output over the input.
Yes.
And so nature is teaching us that. She's like,
yes,
I can't give you that fruit if I don't have this nutrient in the soil.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but you cannot be calm if you don't learn to breathe deeply.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yes.
Direct correlation. If we don't give our body something it needs, we cannot do the thing in a healthy manner, right? We push past our thrive state, our capacity that we've got, and go into survival states. We create survival states in our systems. And that's where we're going to get burnout. That's where we're going to have systems break down. That's where we're going to get disease, right? We're going to become sick. It's not luck of the draw that we get disease, right? Yeah, there's some genetics to it. However, genetics load the gun. Lifestyle pulls the trigger. And epigenetics tells us that, right? Just because you've got the breast cancer gene doesn't mean you're going to get breast cancer.
That's right.
You don't need to chop the breasts off for it.
Right. Yes.
Your lifestyle is vitally important in whether those genes will activate or not.
Yes. Yes.
Right. I mean, that's a pretty bold statement there, but that a lot of disease is.
Yep.
Right.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like I could go on and on talking about this. I feel like we've only tapped this little surface. We're gonna have to do this again, I think. But I do want to just honor the fact that you have an understanding of tendering the earth. You have an understanding of receiving from it. You have an understanding of its wisdom. And then you are also creating a legacy within your children. Now, maybe you can just give us a few tips for people who maybe have not connected. They're like, well, I know I'm supposed to be out in nature. Everybody tells me I need to go for a walk on my hour lunch out in nature, but I don't know. I don't know what to do. What do you mean by, what does that mean? Can you give just some simple things that people can start within their own rhythms of life to create an awareness to nature? Because it's about an awareness. We have to be aware of it. So can you share some tips for us?
Yeah, well, what's just coming to mind right now is our breath.
Mm,
At
mm,
different times of the day, take a deep breath. And what does the air around you feel like?
yes.
How does that
Yes.
breath feel in the morning? What does the air feel like in the morning when you breathe it in? What does it feel like in the middle of the day? What does it feel like at nighttime? Right? You're connecting to your senses. Whenever we are utilizing our senses, we are waking up and activating dormant things in ourselves.
Yes.
And we're creating a deeper awareness, not just of like, that's a simple process there of using our breath in our body with the breath of the earth, the air of the earth, right? And seeing, like observing, right, through our senses, what's there, right? When I step out in the morning, at the moment it's spring, the air is crisp, feels really fresh. There is a little smell of the soil because it's damp from the moisture that's sat overnight, right? When I step out during the day, it feels like this. There's more sun, or there's more breeze today. It smells different to how it smelt this morning, right? And we're just actually recognizing that things shift and change all the time too. And my senses can teach me about that, right? And then we do that in different seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this season feels like this. What that's actually teaching us is like an awareness of the elements, earth, air, fire, water, right? We actually start to be able to step outside and go, oh, this smell, oh, that feeling, oh, it's going to rain
Mm-hmm.
today. It's not going to be till this afternoon, though, right? We develop the skill to communicate with the earth and be more in tuned with her. And then when we're more attuned to the earth, we are more attuned in what to do in our lives. What kind of activity to tap into to do, right? Like to know when to time our run for the day instead of going, I only run in the evening, right?
Well, right. Yes. Yes.
Right? Oh, I like to run at this time of day, but it's really hot then. Actually, I know that the earth cools down a bit, but like it cools down a bit at this time. So I'll make it that time and I'll shift this so that I'm still meeting my needs and etc. Right? But that's a practice there that is so simple. It's just taking a conscious breath. That's being in nature, but you're giving some kind of activity to it, right? So that you're learning something from it too.
Mm-hmm.
The other is to take some time to just sit on the ground.
Yes. Yes.
Sit on the ground. Are you comfortable sitting on the ground? Do you only wear shoes on the grass? Can you get used to the feeling of the grass on your feet, right? Can you be okay with sitting in a park where everyone's wearing their shoes and take yours off and go against the grain,
Mm-hmm.
right? Can you go up and stand next to a tree and put your hands on it? And you might feel silly if it's something you've never done and you're like, what the heck am I doing here? And I don't know what I'm feeling for or listening for. But just pause and breathe and go, you know what? I'm just going to let all that go and I'm just going to put my hands on this tree and I'm just going to see.
Yes.
The other is to learn to grow seeds, right? Something like sunflower seeds are really simple, or growing some microgreens in your kitchen if you don't have any soil outside that you can plant into, right? We can always grow things in pots. But learning to tend to a seed and learning to remember to tend to that seed you've planted.
Yes.
And to think, what does the seed need? How much, what kind of temperature, what kind of amount of light, what kind of moisture, right? Can we attune ourselves to something other than ourselves and nurture it, right? And in giving something that kind of keen awareness, we actually learn to listen to ourselves more too. Right? Might not be thinking about listening to ourselves more, but we naturally will start to, because you cannot overdose on nature. I was thinking about this earlier today, like I am obsessed. I am obsessed with nature and being out here in my garden. Like I can spend hours and hours every single day out here. And unless it's stopping me from doing other things I'm responsible for, I cannot overdose on giving myself nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So giving a seed that level of awareness it needs to grow, and over time it will need less and less from you. It teaches you how to be really intentional. and it sparks something in you. A lot of people
Yes.
don't know that they are gardeners until they just give it a go, right?
Right.
And try it out and, decide, do I love flowers? Well, then I'm going to practice growing some flowers from seed so I can appreciate what it takes for the beauty of that flower to come about, right? It's teaching us to cultivate what we desire in our lives so that we can appreciate the beauty of what we have in our lives. And it's simple, but because there's devotion applied, right, and there's intention applied, it's also magical. It's also spiritual.
Yes. I have found when I have been out in nature, a sacred pause comes over me, and that's the only thing I can say about it, is when I'm in the middle of a field, let's say it's early morning, the sun's coming up. There used to be a time when I would just run through that because I was thinking about the plethora of things I had to do. But now it's become this pause. And I just thank you, sun, for coming out today, especially in the UK when, there's just not a lot of sun here.
Not a lot of sun.
So I'm like, thank you for shining. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for warming me. Thank you for giving me nutrients. And it's small, it's simple. It takes no time at all. And it's just like, oh, and then I'm aware, I'm awake, and I continue on in my walk and I begin to hear, I do a lot of like listening of my feet as they're walking in nature. What does that sound like? Oh, the bird over here. What does that sound like? And I tune into it. It's these simple little things you can do for awareness. And then over that, around that, then every time you step out, if you just keep doing this, you begin to notice even more. You begin to notice that the grass is longer. You begin to notice that, wow, I walked by that tree the other day and now it has buds on it. And you begin to go deeper and deeper into your awareness, deeper and deeper into the realization of what you had passed the day before is now completely different. Even an hour later or 20 minutes later, it can totally shift. 20 minutes later, I was out walking with somebody and I said, oh my gosh, is it just me, or is the river seem like it's much lower than it was the day before? And they were like, yeah, it is. And it's that awareness, it's that excitement. And then you begin that education. Well, why is that? Why? I wonder why the river looks lower. Is it just me? Have I changed? Is the river moved? And you begin to really, it's like a classroom unto itself of like learning. And then I find that as well, it just tunes me into my own self. It rejuvenates me. So I know I'm going to have to go here in a few minutes, but I do want to talk about nutritional meals for a second, because I know that, people talk about eating and how we're supposed to eat right. Can you just give us just in a seasonal sense, like spring, fall, summer, winter, what are just some things that we can eat? Because right now we're in the winter season here in the UK, so it's even darker than and more. What can we do in the winter season for meals and just with the seasons?
Yeah. My phone's starting to go low, so if I fall away, that's why.
Okay.
So if we're thinking winter, right, it's grounding, it's nourishing, we're supposed to be moving slow, and it's earthy, so it's root vegetables, it's warm foods, it's comforting foods, right? It's the slow cooked foods, it's the soups and the stews and the really sort of slowly cooked, easy to digest things. There's less heat in our body in winter, so we need things that are more easily digested, which is where, like, soups and casseroles and things like that, really nourishing, and they warm us up from the inside out compared to having a steak and a salad, right?
Yes.
In the spring, we're wanting to start to lighten up a little bit, but we are kind of oscillating, right? In spring and autumn, we're going to notice that we're in a transitional phase where we feel like we've got a bit of what's coming from the next season, and we've got what's there with us in the season that we're already in, right? So it's kind of an spring and autumn, we always say we kind of oscillate between the winter and the summer, or the summer and the winter, right? We might have some things from the summer that we've canned or preserved or have grown that we're eating in the winter time. In summer, it's lightness, right? We're a lot more active, so we need things that are lighter and cooling, because we don't want to have to put a lot of energy into digesting stuff. So it's a lot more fruits, and it's more of our you know, our berries, antioxidants, because it's protecting our skin from free radical damage, right? The sun, we eat loads and loads of antioxidant rich foods. It's going to help to offer us natural sun protection. The leafy greens, because they're full of water, right? The watermelons and cucumbers that are full of water that help to keep us hydrated when it's really warm, right? So you kind of start to see the qualities of the food, right? There's density in a root vegetable in the winter. And we want some of those root vegetables in the summer, but not loads of them, right? And we eat them in different ways, right? So we might have the carrots cooked in the winter and we have them raw in the summer.
Yes.
Right? This carrot's kind of an all year round thing. And we want to also eat what's seasonal. We want to eat what grows naturally at that time because, right, berries grow to be present for us in summer to protect us from the sun.
Yes.
Right? To give us those antioxidants. Root vegetables and our cruciferous vegetables, so our broccolis, our cauliflowers, right, that we're getting in the winter, they're really good for the lungs and the respiratory system, right? What does your food look like? That's what it's good for. Are you busy running around a lot in summer because you're more active, or you need more more capsicums and tomatoes? Cut them in half; they look like the chambers of a heart, right? Supporting the cardiovascular system, right? Endurance. Right? So all of these foods, like nature is so intelligent. She's so intelligent in giving us what we need, right? All the nettles coming up in my garden right here at the moment, and nettle is amazing for fortifying the body, iron and minerals and building the blood, right? When I harvest that, which I need to do really soon, and then dry it and make it into teas or tinctures, that's going to support my system to be really replenished, especially after we often have a bit of a burst when spring starts, where we do a whole lot of stuff. Then there's a little bit of a lull between you've done all that foundational stuff to help things start growing and coming back to life. We have a little bit of a lull because in spring we don't just go boom up the ramp and keep going. Right. You know, spring's still this ebb and flow a little bit. Right? Bring that in, nourish my body from the hours and hours of physical work in the garden, preparing me for the different type of activity in summer, right? Look to the weeds that are growing. Look to the things that grow naturally in nature, right? All of the funguses coming out in the autumn, right? Because of the humidity and the moisture and around the trees and things like that, right? Around where they grow. Those are the things we want to be learning to eat.
Yes, yes. And you know, what's interesting is we don't even need to sometimes be taught this. It's funny, some of the things you were mentioning, I was just like, well, I do that naturally. I didn't even know that, I didn't even know that I was wanting to have something, during the winter like this, or in the spring or the summer or the fall. We know we're that connected just with nature. Our bodies do talk to us. They do tell us what we need. They do tell us when we need hydration. They do tell us when we need that grounding. I was just thinking I was going to go get beets, not today, but I'll be doing it tomorrow, because I'm needing the beets. I can just feel it, like your body knows what you need because we're that interconnected. And I just, oh my gosh, I just want to say thank you. I wish I could just stay on here for like hours with you, because it begins to flower and blossom and, and everything. But tell us a little bit about the work that you do for people, where they can find you, and how to connect with you, because you are an amazing, amazing teacher of so many things.
Well, I'm in 2 places on Instagram. I am in Wild Earth Magic. So wild_earth_magic with a K at the end. And I'm also at the Witches Homestead, witches without an E, because I'm not a plural.
Yes.
And those are 2 separate. One is more based on the feminine alchemy and the spiritual practice of being a woman, and one is more based on my mini urban homestead gardening journey here, and that's more of my sort of hobby piece, but it's got the spiritual elements in there as well. You can also find me on Facebook. I have a community called the Temple of the Wild.
I'm part of that community. I love it.
And you can come in there, and I do free soul tarot readings, and I do wisdom teachings, things like that in there, and we have conversations, and it's a place for us to connect in there as well. And that Yeah, so that's just the Temple of the Wild. But my work is all about supporting women to basically come back to everything we've spoken about here today, right? That developing that intimate connection to self and to the earth in order to more deeply understand ourselves and cultivate lives that feel rich and meaningful and allow us to be in our wholeness and in our wholeness of our expression, right? To not hide away or hold ourselves back from following our desires and our passions and our visions, right? And a lot of stepping out of the norm in there as well, right? A lot of encouragement to step away from what you were taught to believe but doesn't actually fulfill you, and into what really does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Natasha. Thank you so much for just your voice just to my community, but your voice to me personally. I am still changed by what happened in that women's circle with you, and just the things that you're doing, the things that you're cultivating, the things that you just bring and carry just naturally. You're very natural with this. That's the one thing I love about it, is it's just natural. It's who you are. You're not trying to put on any airs. You're very authentic. And I just want to say thank you for coming and just sharing of your wisdom, sharing with your children. We're in the video a little bit. So, tell them hello from the UK, that, and all of that. And we will definitely do this again. I love following your journey. I'll put all of that in the notes underneath where people can connect with you. And we will be in touch again, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love these conversations.
Yeah, they're amazing, aren't they? All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Alan.
All right. Have a good day.